Yeah, but after the countdown, it doesn't like there's no celebration of like there's no like big celebration emojis or balloons. And now
There's no like crazy sound or like a, I don't know, buzzer that goes off or anything.
no, and the people who are listening to this are like, "What the hell is happening?" Because it started recording in the front of like in the middle of a sentence. So I'll set some context. Basically, like when we record these podcasts, you hit record and it's like a timer that goes down from 5, and that's what we hopped into. So welcome, well, welcome to the longevity hour. This is episode 3, and we have our first ever guest, Tarah Valenti, registered dietitian in the house. This is good. I think this is gonna be like your blow up interview where you're gonna go viral and amazing things are gonna happen.
I don't know.
Not
I
that
don't know
the
if that's my goal.
yeah, yeah, I'm forcing a virality upon you. But no, just kidding. So yeah, first ever guest. Today we're gonna chat about eating for longevity or nutrition for longevity. And before I introduce Tara and her qualifications and why I think she's so amazing as a resource and why she's here to answer some of my questions and probably like common questions y'all might have that are listening. I kind of just wanted to define just like a general definition of like what does eating for longevity even mean, because it's like kind of abstract. And Tara, if you have more to add to this definition, feel free. But the way I look at it, like eating for longevity means you're prioritizing nourishing, kind of whole foods, everything's balanced, and it's all in a means to support a healthy lifespan. So picking food and eating food that's going to make you not only live longer, but improve your quality of life at the moment of ingestion or 20 minutes after, or whatever. So focusing on things that are nutrient dense, moderating, other types of maybe hyper palatable, more processed foods, and then having like sustainable habits that surround that so you can do them consistently as you age. And then the other aspect of it is that ideally it helps mitigate chronic diseases or diseases we see that pop up later in life due to nutrition deficiencies or movement deficiencies, and then it helps you have great energy while you're living in the moment and just improves your quality of life. So that's our definition that we put together. It's kind of wordy. Would you add anything to that?
I think that wordy definition pretty much covered it. I think like the emphasis is just on health span, which is one of my favorite words. It's just like you want to prolong the health span, like how long you feel good and are healthy and are free of chronic conditions and non-chronic conditions and all of that. And eating for longevity is a piece of that. And just having good habits in general that support longevity is going to be a piece of that. I think all of us really want that. Like we want to live long lives, but we also want to feel the best we possibly can while we're living those long lives. Because otherwise, it's not worth it. It like sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I feel like we always end up talking about this because like every episode is like longevity focused, but it's like, yeah, I don't want to live a long life and just be miserable, whether that be like bloated all the time or I can't move or whatever. So yeah, health span. I love that word. And I know we're already getting fired up. We wanna hop into this topic, but I want to introduce you a little bit further because you deserve to be introduced. And I want to give kind of like a background of your education. Basically, and this I'm gonna read. This is from one of your bios I found online, so it might be wrong. Tara earned her bachelor's degree in dietetics from San Francisco State University in 2015. Shout out Gators! I'm also a San Francisco State University grad. So is Ryan, actually. Yeah, we're getting back to our roots.
I know.
You did,
SFSU.
yeah. They should put our like faces up there on the walls somewhere.
We should be on the banners that you see all through San Francisco. Like, it should be us. It should be us three.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember they had like people's like certain famous people's faces like in the halls and during in
Yeah.
certain buildings?
Yep.
Yeah, it's time we put our names in there. Anyways, so you did that, then you did some clinical research at Stanford, and then you earned your RD credentials at Cornell University, and you've been practicing as an RD since 2017. And this is kind of my little favorite part here. I made up this bio for you. So in addition to the above, you're also an accomplished athlete, having completed multiple marathons, and you're currently training for your first ever ultra marathon in April. And you're doing all this while being a business owner. You also lift weights, and you are a caring mama to two baby kittens, and a lovely wife on top of that. So
Thank you.
how's that? How is that for the bio and intro? Do we
You made
are
me
we?
sound like pretty cool, I gotta say. Like I feel like pretty cool right now based on that. But yeah, you got all of that right. I don't know how you know, you must have done some Googling to creep on me, and then the other bits you just know from being like my friend. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's me. You got it. That's who I am.
Hell yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad I nailed that. All right, let's dive into just some questions we have for you in terms of like, eating for longevity, longevity related nutrition stuff. I guess the first thing is, from your perspective, your experience, your background, what would you say are the core principles for eating for longevity? And how do they differ from dieting for weight loss or eating for weight loss? And the reason I say, how do they differ specifically for weight loss is from my experience, I feel like most nutrition advice out there is very much tailor made for losing weight. So how are they different, longevity versus dieting for weight loss and core principles?
So there's a little bit of overlap, of course, because in a sense, depending on like where you're at in terms of how much body fat you have, weight loss can help with longevity goals. So there's definitely going to be some overlap there. And I feel like sometimes people like they know that deep down, and maybe their goals are more longevity based deep down, but their immediate focus and maybe how they're articulating their goals just kind of comes off as like, I just want to lose weight. Um, but when I think about people who have a goal just to lose weight, like that's what their primary focus is. That's what they're coming to me for initially. That's typically more of a short-term goal. That's typically like I have an event that's coming up, or I want to lose weight and I want to lose this much and I want to lose it in this amount of time. It's usually kind of like short-sighted and more immediate. Whereas when we look at longevity and eating for longevity, that's going to be obviously more long term, like very long term as it gets. Um, so I think that's kind of like the two primary differences. In one case, you're looking at more of a short-term goal that might be a little bit more shallow and have less depth to it. Whereas with longevity eating, it does have more depth to it. It has more nuance to it, and there's a little bit more meaning behind a goal like that. I feel like that's kind of, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, 100%. So, when you have a specific body composition goal, it's a little bit more short-sighted or short-term, and there's like a clear maybe, date or outcome that you're looking for. But for lack of a better term, longevity focused eating or nutrition is for the long term. Um, would you say there are any like fundamental principles or just
Yeah,
certain things that play into that?
definitely. Yeah. So for that part of the question, I feel like when it comes to eating for longevity, there's kind of like three main things that I would say if I was going to narrow it down, or like the primary principles or things that should be focused on, and then it can get deeper and more detailed from there. But a focus on nutrient density. So we want to optimize the nutrition that we're putting into our bodies, and we do so by consuming the most nutrient dense foods possible in the largest quantities that are needed for our bodies. And then beyond that, moderation and mindfulness, I put those together because they do go hand in hand. Like it requires mindfulness to exercise moderation. And just mindfulness in general is such an excellent skill for managing your own nutrition in the long term. And speaking of the long term, the final piece would be sustainability. So we want to have a pattern that works for us that we're able to follow for the rest of our lives with some tweaking and some adjustments as time goes by because goals change, our bodies change, all that good stuff. But I think really it's nutrient density, so really optimizing the foods you're putting into your body, exercising mindfulness and moderation, and making sure that you're doing something in a way that is sustainable that you can maintain throughout the hopefully many years of your life.
That's awesome. I love the three pillars: nutrient density, moderation, mindfulness, and sustainability. And it's almost like, the order in which you say them are like a continuum of like physical going into emotional, right? So like the nutrients are like purely like, okay, like what are the physical things, like the chemicals or the molecules that our body needs to just optimize for that longevity. And then we go into moderation. Okay, how much of that? And then you go into like the psychological element, which is the mindfulness and the sustainability, so you can do it forever, and you don't lose your mind throughout the process. And that's such a great, like, I'm not sure if you did that on purpose to make it like super I don't know, digestible or whatever, or it having like a 4D chess element, but that is super cool because I think, I mean, you're obviously, in addition to being like an RD, you're also a great coach, and you have to be a great coach, and you deal with a lot of human beings with chaotic lives. And I've also, we also do nutrition coaching, and the mindset stuff and the emotional stuff and the cultural stuff is such a big part of like helping people improve their lives with nutrition or exercise. So I dig that was in your definition. Um, what would you say are some key, let's like starting with the physical part of it, like what are some key nutrients or food groups or what have you that are crucial in supporting us in our long-term, goals for our health and our nutrition?
Everything you would think, honestly. So, like, I feel like oftentimes people come to me with like a certain issue, whether it be longevity or like maybe they want to support brain health or maybe they want to support their blood sugar or prevent certain conditions, or there's like a thing that they're most interested in. And most of the time, it's the same pattern, it's the same things that you would think. It's like, make sure you're eating fruits and vegetables so that you can get antioxidants into your system so that you can eat enough fiber. Make sure you're getting whole grains. Make sure you're getting omega-3 so that your body can help to manage inflammation. All of the kind of basic pillars of healthy eating apply when it comes to longevity. All of those recommendations that we've been pushing all along are going to help you feel good in the immediate, but they're going to support health over the long term. So there isn't like five, top five nutrients for longevity or anything catchy or sexy like that. It's the classics. It's like eat fruits and veggies, get plenty of lean protein in, make sure you're getting calcium, make sure your vitamin D levels aren't low. All of those kind of basic foundational things are going to support your goals in terms of longevity. I also kind of like to think about it in the sense of like, if our goal is to support a longer, healthier life, what things can prevent us from living a longer, healthier life? And how do we tackle those things proactively with nutrition? So, if we think about for most Americans and many people in the US or in the world, like we're looking at cardiovascular disease, diabetes. Oftentimes, there's issues with bone density that can get in the way of living a good health span. Um, all of those things can be managed or prevented, or you can at least minimize the risk with nutrition. So that's kind of how I put the puzzle pieces together in my mind and in my practice too.
Awesome. And it's kind of like it's kind of nice hearing like uh that the basics, or just doing simple things like, eating fruits and making sure you're getting enough fiber and whole grains and omega-3s and moderation solves a lot of issues, and can maybe potentially like two birds one stone kind of situation, like take care of a lot of things in one go by just making those tweaks,
Yeah.
and
I
also
mean, go for it.
I was just gonna say, and also the chronic diseases that show up later in life. Like it's nice that all those things can be taken care of.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the issue, at least in my experience, is it's not that people don't know what to do. Like it's not that they don't know those basic pillars that of nutrition and like, oh, everybody knows like you need to be eating fruits and vegetables. You need to get enough fiber. It's how to do it that's the issue. And that's where we start looking for shortcuts. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble, where people are like, all right, I noticed that my body's starting to change a little bit. I noticed that I'm starting to feel kind of achy and more tired. I noticed that I'm gaining body fat in areas that I wasn't before. And they start Googling and trying to find shortcuts.
Mm.
And that's where we get into trouble or just like waste a ton of money because most of these products are just trying to profit off of us and not actually going to be effective for the goal that we have.
Yeah, and maybe there's some bias where when we look these things up and we're hit with some really good marketing of like just do this one thing to get your end result, and then we see the converse advice of like, hey, actually you should just eat more fruits and fibers and protein and get whole grains. You're like, no way, like that second thing, I've been told that all my life, and that can't be what actually works. It has to be this supplement or like the potato diet or seed oils are bad for me or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that's a big thing that you see because you work with a lot of folks. I mean, has there ever been though? Like, I feel like from my experience, there are moments when I'm helping my fitness clients with just like basic nutrition stuff because obviously we don't do like super detailed nutrition work like you because it's out of our scope of practice, but just even the basics of like what macronutrients are, or even telling someone like, hey, asking them like, how much fruit do you eat? And then they're like, oh, I don't actually like, I thought fruit is bad for you because there's a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
Do you see that pattern? And when you like, you ever get kind of shocked back into reality, like, oh, wait, these actually maybe aren't that basic. And like, I need to do some educating.
Yeah. Yeah, that does happen. It doesn't happen. So the population that I work with, I feel like most of them are pretty well informed. It's not the lack of like knowing the basics for most of the people that I work with. Like most of them kind of know that stuff. Like it's it's the seeds of misinformation and fear that come in through like social media streams that make them second guess the
Mm,
basics that they already know. Like they have been, we all grew up learning that fruits and veggies are good for you, and then some influencer on social media or whatever, or sometimes their own doctor, that happens a lot, will tell them don't eat fruit, it will spike your blood sugar and it will give you diabetes and it will do all of these things that, like, I can tell you in my many years of practice, fruit has never been the problem for somebody. Like, so it's more like these little kind of like seeds of doubt that get dropped into people's minds from very convincing, often like very beautiful people on social
yeah.
media that are saying things that are not founded in science, and they're coming from people who don't have any like actual background in terms of like education and like true expertise in these topics. And that's what throws people off. And I find most of the time that's what I'm kind of trying to dispel is like, okay, I know that like beautiful person on TikTok said to drink raw milk, but here are all the reasons you should not do that.
Yeah, yeah, especially right now when there's like a bird flu going around.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think anytime it's just like, yeah, that we've known for a while that you shouldn't be drinking raw milk.
yeah,
And we live in like a modern society where you can get rid of all the bacteria in a very easy way.
yeah.
Um,
Pasteurization, kind of an amazing thing.
yeah, I think they just need to rename like pasteurization is just it's too many letters in the word. So just take out the letters and just make it a little bit easier to understand. And
You know what?
people,
They should just market it in a way that people will like want to hear. They should call it like clean milk or something, and people would be
clean
like,
milk. Yeah.
"Oh, clean milk," and then everyone will want to buy it.
Yeah, and then like clean, and then milk is spelled MLK, so it's like it's new, clean
Yeah,
milk,
yeah, that's fresh. That's fresh. And they like
fresh.
put it in like a sleek container instead of like a boring carton.
Yeah, and then like someone beautiful on social media has to drink it. That's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, because then if you drink clean milk, MLK, you'll become beautiful, right? Like that's how it works.
Either you become beautiful or you get to be with the person that is beautiful, and all you guys do is just drink clean milk together, and it's like a great life.
I can smell the milk breath from here.
Yeah. Um, we'll go more. We'll dive in deeper to the myths later, hopefully when we have time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, and I think you kind of were hinting at this, but you know, would you say that um, there is like there is a level of personalization that needs to happen when it comes to just nutrition in general? Because you know, a lot of times like certain people have certain issues, maybe chronic issues, or they have just like a nutritional problem or a health problem that is hard for them to fix via generic advice that you just find on the internet or through influencers. So, you know, how important is that personalization factor when it comes to, you know, eating for longevity? And I mean, this question is kind of maybe too much, but I kind of want to ask it. But like, does it matter what your genetics are, and you know where you grew up, or what your current lifestyle is, and what health conditions you have in that personalization?
So to some extent, like obviously with I feel like with nutrition, the answer is always like it depends, but it does
Yeah.
depend. Like when it comes to genetics, we know that there are certain things that are going to influence the recommendations that we need to make in terms of your nutrition. Like if you are lactose intolerant, which is genetic, obviously we're going to need to modify your diet to accommodate that. If you have the MTHFR gene mutation, you might benefit from methylated B vitamins. So there are some genetic things that we need to take into consideration for individuals if we're lucky enough to have that information about them. And then we can kind of optimize from there. And all of that is going to impact your overall health, which impacts your longevity. There's a lot of new companies and a lot of new information coming out on the topic of nutrigenetics or nutrigenomics. And it's so new at this point. It's like they're trying to profit off of it, but it's too soon. There's not enough data to actually back much of the therapies that they're proposing. And most of the data that's coming back is showing that what we're already doing when it comes to nutrition, like everything we've been talking about, is actually more effective than trying to create these customized, hyper detailed plans based on a genetic profile. So that is kind of like a study that's in its infancy. Um, yeah. What was the other part of the question?
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. The other part was like things like lifestyle and then just health conditions.
Oh yeah, like I mean, lifestyle and what you're exposed to and stuff can play a role as well. But I think when it comes to health conditions, similar to like specific genetic things that people have going on, you're going to need to treat those accordingly. Like if someone has celiac or someone has an inflammatory bowel condition or something like that, that's absolutely going to need to be, you're going to need to create a customized plan for them. Like they can't just use a generic plan that anyone else used. But beyond that, beyond the like more medical or more like science-based technical stuff, I think customized plans are essential in helping people see success, mostly because you're taking into consideration their personal lives, like how many kids they have, what their work schedule is like. Do they work from home? Do they go into the office? Are they provided meals in the office? Like, do they train for specific events in terms of sport? Like, there's so many other factors to like consider when you're creating a custom plan for someone that help to elevate their success. So if they're like trying to find a general plan online or trying to just kind of like wing it and do the best they can, that can be pretty effective. And if you don't have any like complications in your life, which is literally no one,
Yeah.
you know, like maybe you'll do okay. But I feel like most people benefit from a little bit of support in the nutrition department just because there's so much nuance to it, even if you don't have like a specific medical condition or a genetic factor that needs to be considered. Of course, I'm very biased and I think everyone should work with a dietitian for the most
Yeah.
part, but you know, that's me.
Yeah. and I mean, I think you should be biased because I mean, I know from firsthand experience, you make great meal plans, and the way that you coach is awesome. I had this one time, I had like I ate too many whey protein bars, and I had a stomach ache, but it didn't go away. This I sound like a 5-year-old talking like this, but this is like reality. Like it was the first time in my life that I had like a stomach ache for more than like 4 hours. So naturally, I was freaking out, and I was like, "Oh man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" And then I thought, I don't know, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna hit Tara up," and I was like, "Tara, my stomach hurts. Like, can you help me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I got you." And basically, she whipped out this very custom meal plan, and uh, I think the thing that stood out, obviously, like it was awesome having the recipes and the guidance, but I think it was two things, right? And we even talk about this on our run sometimes, where like when you put in ingredients in your meal plans or in the intro, like in the intro to the meal plan, where you're kind of educating, or during your coaching process where you're educating your client or the person that's seeking help from you, you're like, okay, you're going to eat this because of insert health benefit, which is
Hmm.
always great. It's like, it's nice to see like, okay, like, yeah, we're going to add in some protein here to help with protein synthesis and help you build muscle. Like the A and B, the cause and effect relationship, I think it's super awesome because it plays into that education and the sustainability. Like from now on, I know like, or your client will know like, okay, if I eat this thing, I'm going to get this result, and I can do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And it's a
So
motivator. Like if you're, I was talking about this on our last run, like how I add flax to my smoothies
yeah,
because, and like sometimes I feel lazy, like I want to slack on it just because for whatever reason I'm like
you want
too
to
lazy
slack
to
on the
put that
flax?
scoop in. Yeah, slack on the flax.
Sorry, I had to
And
interrupt you.
I was, yeah. Anyway, and I get myself to keep doing it, even though this is like the dumbest thing ever. But I get myself to keep doing it because I remind myself, like, no, I need the omega 3. Like, I'm working hard. I need the anti-inflammatories. Like, I got to get that omega 3 in. And so I do it. So it can be like a little reminder in the back of your mind, like, oh, yeah, I know I need to do this because it's going to give me X benefit. And just kind of like being armed with that knowledge can be really helpful. And I don't know, if you care about your body and you care about yourself, you're going to want to do those things.
Yeah, and it goes into that like motivation or that mindfulness, and it helps kind of drive that intrinsic motivation to continue eating healthy instead of maybe being a little bit lazy about it, or just not even realizing the importance of, yeah, just adding flax to your smoothie. That extra step goes a long way, which I guess kind of can lead me into my next line of questioning, because I'm always interested in how the individual kind of interacts with their expertise, the person behind the credentials. So like I know you're kind of really big into your athletic season. Like you've been training hard for a bunch of different things. So how has, being an athlete and pushing yourself changed the way you look at nutrition or even your nutritional habits?
I feel like, if anything, it's just added a new layer of depth that wasn't there before because now I have this actual real world experience of fueling my body for performance and then actually getting to experience either the benefits or the opposite where like you maybe don't fuel properly and like things don't go as well as you want or you pay the price in whatever way. And especially as runners, like we for sure pay the price if we don't nourish properly. You're either going to bonk or you're going to get cramps or you're going to like have GI issues on your run. Like you pay the price. So I think it's just kind of like deepened my knowledge and appreciation for fueling the body for performance. And also, it's like just really cool being able to eat so much food because I'm moving my body so much. Like, I get to eat so much food. And to me, that like, I love eating. I've always loved eating. It's a celebration to me. And so, getting to do a little bit more of that is always a fun thing, especially when I'm carb loading.
Hell yeah, pizzas for days,
Hmm.
and Pop Tarts, the two
Oh, yeah.
P's.
The two P's,
Um, yeah,
the two
no,
essential
that's
P's.
yeah, the two. Those are the real macronutrients. Nice. Well, that's great. And then, are there anything, is there anything in the past or maybe in the present that you've struggled with when it comes to your own nutritional health?
I've been pretty lucky, like in terms of my health and stuff. I think that, I mean, on the scale of challenges, I feel like, yeah, of course I've had some challenges, but not that bad compared to what some people experience. I actually, when I first started getting interested in nutrition many years ago, it stemmed from me having a thyroid issue. And because of that thyroid issue, I was like, I felt terrible, like the worst I've ever felt in my life. And it just wasn't going away. And I had no idea what it was. And I started gaining weight very quickly, no matter what I did. And I started looking into researching nutrition and like, can I help this issue with diet? And that's where I started really diving into the science a little bit more and realizing, wow, like I need to actually get a formal education in this because it is complicated. Like this is biochemistry. This is not just like make sure you eat apples every day, you know, like this is complicated stuff. And that's what kind of like got me into nutrition. And interestingly enough, if you know anything about the thyroid and thyroid nutrition, you can't cure your thyroid with nutrition. Like it's not going to happen. You can support it. You can make sure that you're getting all the nutrients it needs to function at its best, but you can't like cure hypothyroidism with diet. That's not going to happen. But it did spark my interest in it. And through that process, I did kind of like totally change the way that I was eating because I learned so much and realized like, wow, I'm eating like a 19-year-old. I should probably do better. And kind of went on that journey from there. I also have some GI issues that are pretty chronic that pop up here and there, that I've been managing for a long time. And that's helped me to better help other folks who have like GI stuff that happens because I have been there a lot of times. It is not fun. I know what it's like. And, you know, I feel like it gives me kind of a deeper perspective on how to like help people manage their own stuff and just like make them feel more comfortable talking to me about poop and stuff. Cause like we talk about poop a lot in my industry. So
It's important.
yeah, it's important. Yeah.
Part of the process.
And it's part of the process. We talk about what goes in and we talk about what comes out.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like that's a big one. People are like ashamed to talk about their, you know, their GI issues or sensitive topics like that. But yeah, when you hear people on podcasts talk about poop and how it's normal or stomach aches or farts or whatever, like we got to normalize that because it is part of your health. Like that's your body talking to you.
Yeah.
We're going to switch gears from pooping and farting to just some practical tips, that you feel like can help most people. Cause I know we talked about like lowest hanging fruit when it comes to eating for longevity. Like there's just a couple stuff that you can do that'll make you live longer and better in the moment. So if you had to give out just some practical tips for incorporating just more nutrient dense foods into your daily specific meals, what would those be?
Okay. So I have four.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay. Prepared.
I
Love
got
it.
I got four. Yeah. Four out of like 150 because I feel like this is my entire life. That's what I do. Like I talk about how to eat better and like strategies for it, right? But
Yeah.
my first tip is um, keep add-ons readily available. So things that you can easily just add to stuff you already eat. Example would be that flax that I put in my smoothie. That's a really good add-on. Chia seeds are a really good add-on. Anything that you can like sprinkle on top of a dish that's going to be nutrient dense. So fresh herbs are key. That is like some next level stuff. Like, avocado too. Like if you like pickled onions, those are a great thing that you can just add to dishes. So like nuts, seeds, all of that good stuff, I feel like is a really easy, very low effort way to increase the nutrients that you're getting in your body without like doing any work at all.
Yeah.
You ready for two?
Yeah. I was just going to say like, And it's gonna make your plates like a lot sexier for Instagram. So like you could take a picture of it having like herbs and garnishes and nuts and seeds. So it's gonna help you in more than one way.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of the things that you think about when you think about like presentation, when it comes to like plating a beautiful meal, a lot of that stuff is actually upping the nutritional value of that meal too. It's kind of like funny how when you think about it, like if your meal is just like all beige, like you're eating like
Yeah.
beige colored things and like that's it, like that's probably not very nutrient dense. Like the pigments that make foods colorful are antioxidants and phytonutrients, stuff like that. So if your plate is colorful, it's going to be beautiful, but it's also going to be better for you. So that's kind of like a fun way to think about it, is like, how can I make this beautiful and also good for me? Because they kind of go hand in hand.
Oh yeah. I mean, when we have like nutrition coaching clients, and we like to take like different approaches depending on the person. So a lot of people will come to us and be like, I absolutely like don't want anything to do with a calorie tracker or a food scale or any quantified versions of like tracking. And so we like to take like a qualitative approach and be like, all right, just send us pictures of your food. And the way that we instruct folks when we're first going through this like qualitative approach is just like, we want you to eat the rainbow. So just send, like, when you're thinking about creating your meals and sending a picture to us when you have time, obviously, just make it look pretty, make it have as many different colors as possible. And it's really hard to do that with processed foods unless it's like a bunch of Skittles. But
Yeah.
obviously, people aren't going to send like their nutrition coach a picture of a plate of Skittles. Not that it hasn't happened before, where like, hey, this is a judgment-free zone. We need to
Yeah.
know what you're eating.
Maybe they were
But
going on a long run that day and they needed some Skittles or a strawberry Pop Tart. That's very colorful.
that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I always ask like, long run question mark, and then we'll see. But yeah, that usually helps. Just like, yeah, make it beautiful. Eat the rainbow, taste the rainbow. Not Skittles. Well, Skittles in moderation, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, sorry. We are on two. We're going on two.
Number two. Number two.
All right.
I'll make it quick. Use your freezer is the next one.
Oh yeah.
Freezer is your best friend. They're like always have um, frozen veggies, frozen fruit, and ideally some like frozen, like lean protein sources too, depending on what you're into in the freezer. Um, I feel like you just got to have that. It makes it so that you can make a good meal anytime. Like even if you didn't go to the grocery store for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you hopefully have a stash of stuff in your freezer and you can throw something together. So it makes it so you don't have an excuse, which like we're really good at making up excuses to not cook food for
Oh
ourselves. If you
yeah.
have stuff in the freezer, goodbye excuses. You have to do it. Okay, number three is just plan ahead. Like if you're strategic about stuff, if you do just even the tiniest amount of planning, it will totally be a game changer for you. If you are just kind of like going through the motions and not actually mindfully making decisions about your food and your eating, it's going to be a lot harder. You can still make positive changes. It's not like over for you, but that is going to be key. And then the final thing is don't forget snacks. Snacks, like if you don't remember to think about snacks, you are going to be probably very thrown off. Um, the main reason for this is that snacks are where most of us kind of like we forget to plan, we forget to like think about what we need for snacks, and so then we're like seeking and we're hungry and we're in between meals and we choose something that we didn't plan for, and usually that's not a great thing. Sometimes it is, but for the most part it's going to be like a cookie or like something that we didn't plan on and maybe isn't ideal for us, and that can just kind of throw off like your entire day. It can, and if you think about how many snacks you eat, like if all of your snacks are not great, that's really going to add up. Also, if you're not eating snacks, then you get hangry, and hangry is a bad place to be.
Yeah. And it affects more than just you.
Yeah, that's true.
People around you.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, those were great. It was make it look beautiful. Your freezer is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Plan and prepare, and
Yeah.
don't forget the snacks.
Snackies. Yeah.
Hell yeah. No, those are awesome. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I love the snack thing. I always usually like during our consultations for nutrition or fitness, I always it's like, okay, what kind of snacks? What's your snack situation? And most people like when you ask them what they eat in a day, they don't really mention the snacks, and then they'll be like, oh, I actually eat like a bag of tortilla chips every night, or I have some chips, and I'm like, what is some chips? There's no such thing as some chips. It's usually a lot of chips,
Yeah.
or I have like a beer or two at night or something. So it's always very helpful to come up with just some subs to have like on hand that kind of replicate that. It's like, I mean, and I'm sure you can agree with me with this. Like I'm sure you probably rarely ever tell someone to just fully restrict themselves from a certain food or
No.
what have you, right?
Unless they're allergic to it. No.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not, yeah, we never say like, okay, like you don't ever have like tortilla chips. Like, okay, no, like you can have that, but let's maybe like 80% of the time, let's have something that is like almost tortilla chips. So it just takes up the space, whether that be like fills you up without adding in the calories or a bunch of salt or whatever. And usually it's like popcorn. Popcorn is kind of my
Yeah.
like go-to for chip substitutes because there's also like there's good popcorn with like great flavors that are similar to chip flavors, but now they have you had the popcorners? Have you had that
Mm-hmm.
brand?
Mm-hmm.
It's like popcorn shaped in the shape of a tortilla chip,
Yeah. Delicious.
and they're not fried; they're baked.
Yeah.
And also
I
not sponsored, but if the popcorners like marketing team is somehow listening to this for whatever reason, both me and Tara are accepting free bags of chips.
Yeah, that's true. I will happily accept that. I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of popcorn. I recommend it a lot. I eat it a lot. I love popcorn,
hell yeah.
and it's cool. There's just like so many good options now. Like at Trader Joe's, you can get just popcorn that's like olive oil and salt. Like that's it. Like that's awesome. And it's
Have
super
you
good.
have you had the umami popcorn at Trader Joe's with the nutritional yeast and like the onion and the mushroom powder?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
I love the
that's
herb one though. The herb one is like so
which
good.
one's is that the herb one with the olive oil or what is that? Is that the
It's
one?
like it's got like dill and like a bunch of other
Oh,
herbs on it, and it's like it's so good. It's almost too good.
too good, but it's fine.
Yeah,
That's a good sub where you're like, oh, like I love it. It almost feels like it's like decadent and indulgent, but it's not.
yeah, yeah. Because if
Uh,
you look at like you can eat a lot of it in terms of volume, which is pretty great.
yeah. And that's what it's all about. The volume, fill up the tummy. All right, and I guess now the last part of these kind of tips is like, we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but the mindfulness and the sustainability aspect. So how do you go about like where do you start when it comes to mindset coaching and introducing mindfulness to people? Because a lot of times I feel like that mindfulness word can be triggering because people are like, okay, woo woo, like are we gonna meditate together before we have this meal? Like how do you bring that in without maybe, I don't know, just easily introducing that into someone's life?
I usually on my very first sessions with people, we kind of talk about all of the stuff where we dig into like the numbers side of things, we dig into the science side of things, and that's where I kind of like weave in. Oh, and also we're going to talk about mindful eating, and it's just like it's one of those things that I feel like you can't. It comes up organically, like people need to eat mindfully, but it just sounds kind of weird when you just bring it up out of the blue. And oftentimes, when people are challenging with a habit or a behavior pattern, almost almost every time it has to do with being mindless or having like a routine that needs to change. And how do we change our routines and our habits with a little bit of strategy and a little bit of mindfulness? And I feel like that is where so much struggle comes in. Like we get on autopilot, we're doing the same thing every single day, we don't even think about it. And we need to kind of like intercept those patterns, those habits, and stop them somehow. So I kind of just let my clients know like this is something that's going to come up, warning. And it just does. Like, I feel like once they start talking about the challenges that they're having and we start talking about ways to fix those challenges or to kind of like mediate them a little bit, mindfulness just comes in, and it's sort of just like organic and natural and super helpful, and people aren't really opposed to it if it is directly going to impact a challenge that they're having.
Yeah. And so what are some common obstacles and then the pairing, like the mindfulness strategy that goes with it that you see when you coach people?
Okay, so here's an example. Eating too quickly and without like being conscious while you're doing it, right? So say you're like super busy, you're in between meetings at work, you have 10 minutes to eat lunch, and you just like you scarf that food down because you're like, I got 10 minutes, I'm not even thinking, I'm hungry, I'm just going to eat. That is a really good opportunity to try to exercise mindfulness. So I like to do something called the midpoint pause. I don't know if I've ever told you about it before. Have I?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so this I'm going to take off my sweater because this is my favorite thing. Um,
Damn. All right. Let's get serious.
getting warm when I talk about the midpoint pause.
Yeah.
So
Fired
the
up.
midpoint pause, basically, it's so simple and it's portable. You can do it anywhere, which is my favorite thing about it. It's literally something you can use in any situation that you are eating. Basically, what you do is you eat to the halfway point of whatever it is that you're eating. So you can literally cut it in half. Like if it's a burrito, cut your burrito in half. That's easy. If it's a bowl of something, you can kind of like just visualize a line through the middle, or even make like a little moat in there if you want to be like me and you're weird. Um, and just eat to that midpoint. Like get there. If you have that visual cue, it's a really helpful way to remind yourself that this is the point where we're going to do something. So when you get to the halfway point, you have half of the burrito down the hatch or whatever it is, that is your cue to sit back, let go of the burrito, chill for a second, take a couple deep breaths, and just check in. Like, just ask yourself a couple of questions. How do I feel right now? And that could mean like physically, like, do I feel full? Do I feel like, I don't know, are my muscles sore? Like, you could literally check in any kind of way. How am I feeling in this present moment? Or it could mean emotionally. Like, how am I feeling right now? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling rushed? Am I feeling kind of bummed out? Am I feeling bored? What's going on with me? Very quickly. And then you make a decision about how much more you want to eat. So, physically, if you are feeling full, if you're feeling satisfied, if you're feeling still hungry, that's going to inform how you proceed forward. You can make any decision you want at that point. So if you're feeling full, but you're like, I don't even care, like, I want to eat more, today is the day where I'm going to indulge. Cool. The point of the exercise is just to do that consciously and like with intention. So you can, there's like no wrong answer basically, but you can do it in any situation. Like I love it for if you're traveling, if you're eating out with friends, if you're just in any kind of situation where maybe you're not like able to track your food on an app or something like that, but you still want to kind of stay mindful and have a little bit of control over the situation. Um, that is my favorite mindfulness tool. That's usually what I start people with. And I feel like it applies to like so many different types of scenarios.
Yeah. I love it. What was it called? The midpoint pause?
The midpoint pause. Yeah, you get to that
Uh,
midpoint and you just pause.
yeah, and I like that it's not like the way that you introduce it isn't like, okay, like we're gonna pause at the midpoint specifically so your appetite reaches your brain, or like you have a little bit more awareness of your appetite. It's more so just like, because that will happen, but it's more so just to set the intention of just taking a break and like going through an audit checklist of like emotional, physical, intentional, and then proceeding forward however you want to. And just the act of doing that and breaking that like routine of eating, because it is such a routine and a habit, can bring clarity and just bring maybe a different sense of perspective.
Yeah.
um,
Well, what often happens is people end up realizing that they're actually feeling pretty satisfied. Like they'll hit that halfway point, and a lot of times people are like, actually think I'm going to save the other half of this burrito for later. I don't
Yeah.
feel like I really need it. Or like, you know what? I think I'm just going to have like two more bites. Like I think I'm feeling pretty good instead of just like autopilot going all the way through. Um, so that can be a helpful one. Another one on this topic, I kind of love this topic, so I'm going to share another one. But another one that I like to challenge people with is finding a situation where you can eat with no distractions. This is
Mm.
really hard for people. Like,
Yeah.
especially if you are like, if you have a family, you have kids and stuff, but also like if you don't, because most of us are on our phones while we're eating, or we're answering emails, or we're watching YouTube, or even just like in conversation with a friend. That's also a distraction. So I like to
Yeah.
challenge people to find a situation where you can eat completely alone and only be eating. Like that's the only activity. And people go nuts because it's like very boring to them, and it's just like they get uneasy. It's really interesting to hear people's responses and what comes from that. So I like to challenge people to try to find a situation where they can do that just to experience it. And sometimes like they love it and they want to do more of it, but oftentimes it's just a pretty cool learning experience, to be able to
Yeah.
fully tune into the process of like eating.
Yeah, I feel like in our modern society, it's really hard to just do one thing, like not be distracted. Like even when you're going to the bathroom, like most people are scrolling and they're being inundated by stimulation, and it's like crazy stimulation, like the craziest shit you can think of. Like you're on the toilet and you're watching that at the same time, so you don't even know
Yeah.
what's happening. You're like you look up and 20 minutes have gone by. Or yeah, same when you're eating, or even when you're in nature or whatever. So like anytime you challenge someone to just focus on one sensory input, it's hard. It's like anxiety inducing. But
Yeah.
I think that it's like important. It that kind of reminded me of, have you heard of the restaurant? There's like a restaurant where it's fully dark and you like it's like quiet and you blindfold yourself or something and then you eat.
Hmm.
Like I want to try that. That sounds cool. But I bet like I wonder if like because one other thing that we also talk about with clients when it comes to like mindset or mindful eating is really even just taking an audit of the flavors that you're experiencing and the textures,
Hmm.
because that makes you slow down and appreciate what you're putting into your body, and it kind of makes you a little bit more grateful about just having delicious food. But I wonder what that would be like when you go to like a restaurant, because in restaurants there's also a lot of stimulation and the ambiance or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
that we should do that. That would be a fun experience.
That would be super fun. I would totally be down. I'd also be like, I hope they're not feeding me like something terrifying, like
Yeah,
or like super weird. But I also like to think about like, when you go to like a really, really expensive, like very high-end restaurant, and they give you like all these little dishes, and they're all like so well thought out, and like each one is a treasure. And
yeah,
how you eat that little tiny thing, like it's like a thing that's like the size of a quarter on your plate, and you can make that last like 12 bites, because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you just want to savor every little molecule of it. Like what if we ate like that during other times too?
Yeah.
Probably would have a lot different of an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it becomes you would kind of just have a very different perception on life just in general, because you're really slowing down and you're appreciating the little things. I think it's like literally a form of meditation, like 100%. And I definitely like I resonate with that because I'm the opposite of that. Like 90% of the time, I am not someone that slows down when eating. Like I just like wolf food down super super quickly, and then I cut. It's almost like a something takes control of my body, and then I come
like a
out of
like a
it.
primal
Yeah,
instinct.
I come out of it. I'm like, oh my god, like what just happened? Like it's been like 5 minutes. I just crushed a burrito and like half of a whatever, like a Crunch Wrap Supreme. I'm full, and like I haven't even picked what I'm gonna watch on Netflix yet. So in
Dude,
those
You got to try the midpoint pause with that
I
burrito.
know. No, it's sometimes the coaches have to do their own, take your own advice, or all that stuff. But no, I've gone in and out of those phases, and it always makes a huge difference. It's kind of amazing. Um, but yeah, midpoint pause. That's everyone try the midpoint pause, and wherever you're watching this or consuming this, comment how it went. Let us know. I'm gonna do a midpoint pause. I'm gonna do one tonight, and I'll text you. I'll tell you how it went. I
Yeah,
don't know what I'm gonna
report
eat,
back.
but yeah, but I'm down. I'm down to try that. I also wanted to ask you. I mean, this is super common, right? Like when things don't go according to plan when it comes to nutrition. How do you coach people to stay patient and to trust the process instead of being frustrated and giving up?
So, life is a crazy thing, and like we plan, but things always get in the way. Like I think part of it, and this is something that I do my best to address in the very beginning when I first meet with someone, is just anticipating that it's not going to be easy. Like if you know that you're up for a challenge, you're going to be mentally more resilient when that challenge comes. Another thing that I really try to drill into people when we first meet is like when things get hard, like when you're just really struggling to stick to the game plan and you feel like you've totally fallen off and nothing is working the way that you wanted it to, that is not when you stop seeing your dietitian or your coach. Like that is
Yeah.
actually when you should reach out to us and you should utilize our expertise, because I have literally seen it all and I have walked people through some crazy stuff. And all that you really need in those instances sometimes is just somebody to kind of guide you through it and say it's going to be okay. Like sometimes we have to shift our priorities around, sometimes we have to kind of pivot and take a different approach. But the idea is that we're not just letting go and throwing in the towel. We're just maybe going to do things a little bit differently. So it might look, a little bit different than we planned, but that doesn't mean that it's over and we need to give up. So I think kind of having an awareness ahead of time that like this is not necessarily going to be like all sunshine and rainbows and puppy dogs. We're going to create this beautiful plan and it's probably not going to go exactly like we want it to. But that's okay. That's how these things work. It's eating. You literally do it a lot of times throughout the day. There's a lot of room for error there. So
Yeah.
we should not be expecting perfection.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the emphasis on like starting out, like just like we plan and prepare meals, we plan and prepare the journey, and you understand that there will be obstacles and it's not going to be perfect. I mean, I think me and Ryan have already said this on the past two podcasts each single time. Like, I feel like we always just come back to the mindset stuff. It's like, just understand that you're not ever going to be perfect. Reject perfectionism, reject an all or nothing mindset, and understand that like we're not going to be focusing on outcome the whole time, and just focus on the process. And like you said, when things go horribly wrong or they're not going in your direction, the process just might need to change. And instead of like quitting, rely a little bit more on your coach or the resource or whatever, or just make it like a tad bit easier,
Yeah.
instead of doing, I don't know, like instead of doing a midpoint reset, just say that like, okay, like maybe I'm going to do a 75% reset. Like I'm really just going to eat and not care, change the variables around, make it a little bit easier for you to get a win. Oh yeah. And that's one other thing that I always try to like bring up is just like, no matter what, you're going to have a win. Even bringing it down to like the win has, even if nothing else goes wrong, the win is you were like, hey, I'm going to prioritize my health. I'm going to seek help with someone that I know is going to help me. And I started that process, because that's hard to be vulnerable with someone, especially with nutrition. Like you said, like we do it however many times a day. And it's not just about eating and fueling yourself. There's like societal, cultural things that come with it. There's trauma that comes with it. There's a whole list of things that come with eating, and just being vulnerable enough to like be like, hey, I need some help is a win. So count the win. You already know you can move in the right direction. and just modify. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I love those suggestions.
I think also like it can be difficult in the moment when you're like beating yourself up, but like stepping back and looking at the big picture. Because even if you had like the worst week ever, like absolutely self-sabotaging, going completely off the rails,
Yeah.
that doesn't change all of the positive things that you've done prior to that. Like all of the positive things that you have done previously have impacted your body in a way that doesn't just immediately get reversed when you have a bad week. Like that's not how it works from like a biological and physiological standpoint. A bad week is a bad week, but how long does it take for atherosclerosis to happen in your arteries? Like it takes many, many years. So if we look at the big picture, so you had a bad week, but most of the time you're on point, like you're probably going to be okay, you know? I think that like it can get tricky when we're looking at metrics like what the scale is today or whatever it is, and we're not actually thinking about the changes that are happening in our bodies on a cellular level that we have a harder time measuring or maybe measure less frequently because we're only getting labs like once a year or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The the I love it, the generosity, like you said, like a whole bad week, like you can get away with a whole bad week, maybe even more, I like that's huge for people because I think some people it's like one meal in the day, if that's like if the one meal goes wrong or they don't have control over it or whatever, they make a decision that doesn't move them in line with their goals, then the whole diet's off, everything's gone out the window, and you're like, no, 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 like you got a whole week. So if anyone's having that week right now, just
Yeah.
just know it's gonna be fine.
The body is so resilient. Like
Yeah,
so resilient. I always like tie everything back to running because it's all I think about. But if you
yeah,
think about like training, right? When you're in a training cycle, you build, 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 build for like weeks and weeks and weeks, for months, you're building. And if you like ideally when you're making your training plan, you're looking at all of your miles and all the different workouts you're going to do and all of that, and it's all perfect and like organized and planned and beautiful. In your mind, you're going to hit all those workouts like 100%. It's going to be amazing. But reality is that literally never happens. There's always something that kind of gets in the way and you have to rearrange the schedule and things get weird, or like maybe you get injured or you get a cold or like whatever it is. Or maybe you just like suddenly lose your motivation for like 2 days and you miss two workouts, whatever it is. That doesn't negate all of the building you've done up until then. It's not like you lose all of your fitness because you skipped a workout or you took a day off that you didn't plan on taking off. Like the
yeah,
body is incredibly resilient, and we have to remember those things instead of just getting down on ourselves for like one little deviation.
yeah, yeah. So be compassionate and understand that like you can't reverse all of the progress in a day or even in a week. So keep going. Yeah, and going into the running thing that you're like obsessed about. So we're over an hour and we got to cut it. But I mean, we could just talk about this, I think, for hours and hours, which we'll definitely have you back because, yeah, I mean, these
I
are
go on I go on
your
lots of tangents.
tangents. I mean, you get fired up. You took your jacket off. You're like, all right, let's
Yeah,
freaking do this.
let's go.
And we talked about like poop and stuff. So I know
Gotta
that the
love the poop
audience loves
talk.
that. Yeah. So we're gonna end on a kind of not necessarily a nutrition or wellness topic, but just I love asking these kind of different miscellaneous questions just so people get a better understanding of who you are as a whole individual. But is in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved or changed your life?
I mean, you already know what that is.
Yeah, Pop
um,
Tarts.
Pop Tarts. Well, related to Pop Tarts.
Yeah,
Um, no, I mean, it's definitely like getting back into running consistently and building that as like a passion or hobby of mine. I feel like it's it's given me so much. It's given me perspective on so many different things well beyond like nutrition and health, but in terms of just like resilience and mindset and pain, like the body's ability to deal with physical pain and bouncing back from injury. Like it's just it's taught me a lot, and I want that for everyone. I'm like, this is literally the coolest thing, but obviously running is not for everyone. So I
No.
feel like, you know, you got to find your thing and then challenge yourself, because it's pretty fun to kind of like push your limits and see what you're capable of, because like it's more than you think every time.
Yeah. Yeah. So find your running, folks. Find the thing that makes you spend a shit ton of time on it and makes you like literally be in pain and hurt your body, but then like really makes you cherish life and enjoy yourself and everything else. So find whatever that is for you. And yeah, okay, I dig that answer, and I agree. That's definitely one of mine in the past 5 years. But yeah, well, thank you, Tara. Like, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Um, where can, if someone wants to work with you or work, I know that you're a busy gal and you're running businesses, so they might not be able to directly work with you, but people that you train and that vouch for, where can they go?
I will say, if you're cool, I will work with you as a client.
All right. So you have to
That's
be, if
like
you're
the
really cool, yeah.
yeah, that's like a criteria number one. Like you have to be pretty cool, you know, very chill. But no, I am taking on clients, so people can connect with me. Honestly, I'm gonna do the thing you shouldn't do and just say email is actually like the best way to reach me, rather than like social media or a website or whatever.
Okay.
Connect with me via email. My email address. I guess if there's like show notes, we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But it's
I'll do
it's
that.
taravenrdn@gmail.com. That is probably the best way to get a response from me. I'll repeat it. It's taravenrdn@gmail.com, and Milad will add it to the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll drop it down. That's pretty easy. Yeah. No DMs, no type forms, just a classic email. I love that. We gotta get back to
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. Well, thanks for coming on. To those of you listening, thanks for listening. We're rocking and rolling. Like I've seen some of your comments, and me and Coach Ryan really appreciate it. So thank you for all that stuff. And I will talk to everyone. We will talk to everyone soon.